this macro language kind of features within our application. So I want you to remember the 3-4 things that we looked at, where we created an engine, we created a scope, we used a string variable to create code. Then we converted that string, we compiled that string into executable code, and finally executed it. So those are basically the steps that we will look at here, how we have used those same steps here to provide the features that we just saw in the application. So first thing we do is set up this class called Python Engine. This has a oops, sorry. My machine seems to have a mood of its own, but anyway. So the Python engine has a string builder variable, member variable, and it basically initializes that variable. If you look at the bottom, to a no-op Python function. So there's a def and update item, and within the def, there's just one line which is pass. So what that means is that this is a Python function which pass in Python is like do nothing. So I create the body of a Python function, and I am right now doing nothing in that function. Going forward, I will update this string builder to keep adding code within the order objects, as we were seeing there. So what you see here is, as I said, I have functions here within the Python engine which allow me to update that string variable, and so this is the kind of formula that user would have typed in, that order dot executed quantity is equal to order dot total quantity minus leaves quantity, which basically means that calculate this field and based on this formula. What I do is I update my definition of that function with this string. This string adds to the Python function which is being stored as a string builder there. Then when I call this update item method for the order variable, we basically update that the definition of the order object. Now it is important to know that the order object is a C# object. It is not a Python object. Like there we were seeing that we created a person object and we added first name on the fly to it, right, in the Python interpreter. There the person object was a Python object, a Python class, and versus here where order is not a Python class, it is a C# class. So how will I be able to add new member variables to a C# class? To do that, there are certain things that I need to do, and we look at here. So this is a simple way of doing that. What I do here is within the order object, I maintain a dictionary of key value pairs. And there are two functions that to which try get member and try assign value or whatever. These two functions are called by the Python code, by the Python DLR hosting code, while when it tries to add, for example, when it tries to assign to a C# object, it will first call these functions, or after trying to assign, it will call another. So I basically get hooks into the life cycle, into the assignment cycle before assignment. then it will try to assign. If it is not able to assign, then it can also call another function which I can override here. So I get hooks into the hosting API, which allows me to add these values. So for example, order.executed quantity, which was not even a field within my order C# object, it got added within the dictionary as a key value pair, where the key is executed quantity and the value is the value which is computed at that time. And similarly, while getting, also it would go to the dictionary and get that value. Okay. So this is the Python hosting API, which is able to call these functions, and therefore I'm able to store these functions within the order object. Now I have stored these new values within the order object, but then how am I able to bind them to a grid, for example? Again, the Silverlight grid or the WPF grid is not aware of Python or of hosting APIs, right? How is that able to pull when I create, when I bind to a column, how is that able to pull out a member variable on the order class which is not even declared on that class? How is it able to do that? So that is the next thing that we look at. What we need to create is a value converter. The value converter comes to our rescue here. What we do is we within the value converter, we take the instance of the Python engine class that I showed you earlier. The value converter basically takes the name of the attribute, goes to the Python engine class and says that, can you get me the value of this attribute from the order object? So all the dynamic values can only be written through the Python API and can only be fetched back for binding with the Silverlight column through the Python engine. So that is where the hosting infrastructure comes in here. So that essentially, and the rest of it is just is code you will be very familiar with if you've written any WPF or Silverlight programs where you have dynamic bindings. You create a binding object, you assign it to various values. That is how we were able to generate the new column within the grid. So that essentially wraps up all that I wanted to show you. Okay, this was not even visible. So I'll give you a minute more to read this because this was not visible while I was talking to it. Yeah, so that is the converter and that is the binding. So that wraps it up. To summarize, we looked at what a dynamic language is, what is a DLR, the features that a DLR provides, which is a dynamic type system, dynamic